Good evening and welcome to another live stream event here with the Whangarei Seventh-day Adventist Church. I'm glad that you have chosen to join us tonight, and keeping with tradition of the past, we have another incredible guest to share a story and a journey with you that I hope will inspire you, that I hope will encourage you. We're going to be talking with Tori Banter, and Tori is a good friend of mine. We've known each other for a few years and she does some amazing work with horses, but it's not just a horse show tonight. Those horses have revealed some incredible things about the character of God to her and about people and relationships. And it's become a whole ministry that really is not just about horses, but also about people. So it's going to be an incredible story tonight. And I'm glad that you've chosen to tune in. Encourage you to stay tuned in all the way through because it's going to be a good one. It's going to be a good one. So once again, thank you. And as always, I want to remind you, you can find us, whichever platform you happen to be on right now, but you can simply do a search on YouTube for Whangarei Seventh-day Adventist Church, and you see we'll pop up with that little round icon, the bright, what's that color? Orange. And you can find us there. And then when you do, hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell button, and set the notifications to notify you for all and every instance where we go live. So that way, even if we do something unscheduled, you'll be the first to know and you can tune in. And then, of course, to get the YouTube algorithm going and to tell it that it's worthwhile and it needs to share it with other people, use that like button. Right now, you can just hit like, you can subscribe, you can use the comments, and you can share to your own social media platform. So I'm sure you're going to probably have some questions, and I'm sure you're probably going to have some comments when you start to hear this incredible story and this incredible journey. So be sure to use those comments section. Otherwise, you know where to find us on Facebook and as well on Instagram. So again, thank you for joining us tonight. We are going to have a great discussion with this friend of mine, Tori, in just a moment. But before then, I want to share with you a video that will give you the idea of exactly what it is that she does. So for the next 2.5 minutes, enjoy this little video. So I hope you enjoyed that video. It's time to bring Tori on to tell us a little bit more. Now, that's only about half of that video. You can find it on Facebook and you can watch the entirety of it there. So welcome, Tori. So glad to have you with us this evening. Thanks for making the time. How are you tonight?
No worries, I'm good, thank you.
Yeah, that was quite a video. Bareback horse riding and running with it. I mean, it's a little bit, I guess in my picture of what I know, it's a little bit more like someone with a pet dog running on the beach like that. I mean, is it a normal thing for a horse to run next to you like that without, holding its
Speed
straps or
rope,
whatever you
yeah.
call them?
So, I mean, it's become more and more common over the last few years, but since I was a kid, a lot about horsemanship has changed, and so not everyone can do that with their horse. Not everyone wants to do that with their horse, and
True.
it takes a lot of time and effort to get a horse to a place where, out in an open space. I was on the beach at Uratiti, and instead of leaving, Honor chose to stay with me. So it doesn't happen by chance, that's for sure.
Right, right. Now we're going to get into that more in just a moment. But of course, tell me a little bit about you. Obviously, what I know about you is you're married. You have your first child already. That's great. That'll be keeping you busy. Are your horses still getting as much attention since you've had a baby?
Yeah, so Pat and I have been married for 4 years, and Lockie is about 15 months old now. And right from, well, all through my pregnancy, and then as soon as I could ride after having him, I was back riding. And even when I wasn't riding, I was going out every day. So Lockie has got an affinity for the horses. And I say he's come by it honestly, because he really doesn't have much choice at the moment. He's around them a lot.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. We've actually got
Yeah.
a video in a little while where we'll see Lockie loving on the horse, or the horse loving on him, whichever way around you want
Yeah.
to put that. So tell me a little bit about how you got on this journey, how long you've been on this journey with the horses. How did you find your love for these horses?
So I guess I have Mum to thank, really, because when we were kids, she got us ponies, and also our neighbour on the farm next door to us, she had horses, and I don't know what it is about them, but I just have always loved them. I don't remember not loving them. But my journey on my natural horsemanship, I guess, started when I was about 14. And that's really when I started to understand the concepts that I now use every day and teach other people. And it was probably, I don't know, 2 or 3 years after that, so sort of 15, 16, 17, that I really started to see the connection between what I was trying to achieve with my horses. And I was sort of coming back to being in a relationship with Christ at the time as well. And so it was kind of this double learning journey of what is it that Christ expects from me, and it was playing out with me and my horse. And so that's really where it started for me. And the more that I had client horses come in, the more people that I taught, the stronger this connection got in my mind, of that it wasn't just about me and my horse that God was speaking to me about, but actually it was a much broader picture. And I have been brought up with parents who were very ministry minded, and so when I chose to be a horse trainer, I know that there was questions around how does this fit into God's picture, and how does this help other people, and what does that look like? Is this just something that I do for fun? And it'd be very easy to get caught up in like competition with horses, and kind of go down that route. So yeah, and not that competition is necessarily bad, but it would be very easy to turn it into just another person
For
with
it
a
to
horse.
become more consuming. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm a reasonably competitive person naturally, so if I did go down that route, it would be to be the best that I could. And so yeah, I know, like I say, there was questions around that for my parents and myself really, but I guess the journey that God's had me on with him and with my business, um, it's not taken me that route, and in fact it's brought me much closer to him, and hopefully my goal is to be able to share that with people, um, but in a way that it doesn't feel like you're ramming it down their throat. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
of
Like
course. Yeah.
I don't necessarily go out and talk to people about God every single time that I train their horse, but you hope that in the way that you conduct yourself, or that you're training the horse, they can see glimpses of who God is through that.
So what's the name of your business?
Tori Lee Equestrian.
Tori Lee Equestrian. We can find you on the internet, I'm guessing.
Yep.
Yep, as well as on Facebook, as I say. That's where that video is, right? You can look up
Yeah.
Tori Lee Equestrian on Facebook and find you there.
That's right.
Right. So you talk about receiving client horses. So what kind of horses do you get sent for training? I'm sure you only get the good ones that come your way, or do you get a few with some bad habits?
So if you ask Pat, my husband, he pretty much tells everyone I never get sent the good horses. Um, so, so yeah, I don't tend to get sent the horses that are easy to ride or you know, well rounded. I get the ones that are causing people a little bit of grief, or yeah, have challenges. And also I take a lot of young horses who have never been ridden or taught anything before, and therefore they're a bit of an unknown. They don't necessarily know what they're supposed to do, and
Yeah.
so they can be a little bit of a wild card as well. They can kind of go either way depending on how they're handled.
Yeah, these are some pictures of your horses, eh?
Yep. Yeah. So my this horse that I'm jumping, she is my main horse that I have at the moment. Her name's Honor. This is my little nephew and I just playing around with the ponies. And that little pony actually was my younger sister's little guy. So when I got Honor, she was quite, most people would say, highly strung, I guess, and she still can be. So this is an ex racehorse. If you just pause this photo,
Yep.
so the horse, so these two look identical. Everyone thinks that they're the same horse, but obviously they're not. So the one on the left, his name's Tony. He's an ex racehorse, and the one on the right is Honor, my main horse. And I trained Tony before he was a racehorse, and then he wasn't fast enough. And he was going to be put down if someone didn't take him. And knowing what a lovely horse he was, I took him on, even though I didn't really have room for another horse. But you know, when you think racehorse, you don't really think being able to fly through the air and swap horses like Superman. So it was a process to get to that point, but it was pretty fun. Yeah, so my mare Honor, she was quite intense little horse when she came to me, and you'll see there's some photos of her or video of her with Lockie at the end, and the journey that she has been on with me, and the confidence that she's built, and just the sensitive side that's coming out in her having Lockie around, it blows me away all the time. Now, if you pause on this photo for a sec, Adrian, so this picture is from the latest Kaimanawa horses muster, so that happened in April. And I've got two of the Kaimanawa stallions that were mustered from the wild, from the Kaimanawa ranges.
Wow.
And I'm actually participating in a stallion challenge, which is called the Freedom to Friendship Stallion Challenge. So the goal is that you get wild horses, never been around humans or had any interaction with them before, and you tame them and train them to see how far you can get them in 6 months. So the little black horse at the back of this herd that's coming in, that's one of the ones that I have, and there's some pictures that have been rolling through of him now. So yeah, you carry on playing the thing. So this is Recon. This is one of the first times that I was able to touch him on the head. And yeah, it's been an interesting journey with, I've got two of the wild horses, and the difference in their, just who they are as horses. I guess you'd call it horsenality rather than personality. But yeah, that's I don't know, that the interaction that I have with the horses, every horse has something to teach, and you know, oftentimes people think I train the horses, but so much more of the time I learn things from them. So these are the wild horses when they first arrived.
Wow, that's absolutely incredible. And I think that the key thing, though, from what I've seen, what I know about you, is that your philosophy and your methods employed to train these horses are quite different from the usual. So, what does that actually look like in practice? Describe it, and maybe you've got some examples you could share with us.
So I guess the principles of the way that I train horses is trying to understand why they do the things they do rather than training them like robots. So it's very easy to go, right, I want a horse to be able to lead and pick up its feet and go on a horse float and all of that sort of stuff. But as I kind of mentioned, they have their own little personalities or horsenalities. And so figuring out, those little quirks about them, but then also realizing that humans and horses are completely different. Horses are absolutely prey animals. They are flighty, claustrophobic, and they're unpredictable at best when they're in their natural instincts, or relying on their natural instincts. And humans, although we don't necessarily want to be called this, we act more like predators. And so when you try and put a prey animal and a predator together, you're going to have like massive conflict because we think differently, we act differently. Things that aren't scary to us are absolutely terrifying to them. And so learning why they do the things they do, and then how to approach them in a way that you can still achieve the goals that you have, but have them actually participating in the task rather than being forced or made to do it. So
Yeah, if I can interrupt you there quickly.
yeah.
Last night on our live stream, we had a conversation with Dennis and Leanne Brownie, and they work with traumatized children,
Mm-hmm.
and just remarkable how similar what you're describing your style of horse training is with the way they have found they have to deal with children who, I guess by comparison have, because of the experiences that they've gone through, become prey children, if you know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying.
Yeah,
And see adults sometimes as predators. And I'm just seeing incredible parallels with the way you're describing even, why is this behavior there in the horse, and that kind of thing. So for those of you that didn't check out last night's live stream, be sure to have a look at that. It's called Bringing Healing to Traumatized Lives. So tune in for that. Yeah. So sorry, just had
that's all
to
good.
mention that parallel there. Yeah.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
carry on. Yeah. Tell us some more.
So I guess for I mentioned that I've got the two wild boys, and it's been a really cool experience for me. I've never trained wild horses before, so this is my first time working with horses that are untouched and undamaged by
So
humans.
are they actually wild horses in New Zealand?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
There's actually two herds of wild horses. One of the herds live up in Ahipara, in the sand dunes up there, and the other herd is in the Kaimanawa Ranges. Yeah.
Wow.
So
That's
the
incredible.
two horses that I have, they come from the Kaimanawa Ranges, and I guess my philosophy of teaching the horses is based on the fact that we're using ways to communicate with them that they naturally use with each other, and so it's essentially I've learned another language, and now teach people to learn another language, which is horse language. And so it's all fine and well to have that idea in your mind that you're doing what the horse would naturally know to do with domesticated horses, but they've always been around people. And if you've always handled them that way, then is it just because they're accustomed to the way you do it, or is it actually innately in them? So having these wild horses has kind of proved the theory. Like it's helped me to go, yeah, actually, what I'm doing is how a horse thinks and why they do the things they do. And I guess even, taking that to the spiritual application is like humans are a certain way naturally, and God tries to connect with us in the way that makes sense to us. But oftentimes, if you have had trauma, like you mentioned, the conversation you had last night about the children who have had bad experiences, but broader than that, everyone has experiences in life that they carry things with them that cause them to be conditioned to certain, facial expressions or words, or the way you talk, or just their assumptions about people. And so we, as domesticated horses, are conditioned with certain responses. And then when God approaches us, we assume he's going to be how we assume other people are going to be. And
we project onto him. We project onto him what we've experienced with other people, good or bad.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. And horses do that. And I guess that's one of the parallels that when I step into to train them, it's actually helping them to break down those assumptions and go, actually, I'm not who you think I am, and I am not here to force or make or coerce you into my way of thinking. It's actually connect on a relational, find safety, find comfort. Those are the things that are important to horses, and at the heart of it, those are important to humans as well. And so when I'm training horses, the first thing, they have to feel safe around me. If they don't feel safe, there's absolutely no way that we're going to get any further. And the difference between safety and comfort is probably not that much, but a horse can feel safe and yet not relax around you. As far as they're not fearing for their life, but they're not really going to feel comfortable and trust you when you do actually ask them to do things. So they're happy if you're in their space, but once you start putting pressure or asking questions, then they can get resistant and defensive, and potentially like horses go through a fight, flight, or freeze response. Yep. And if you don't read that well, then you're likely to get them or yourself hurt. And again,
they are a little bit bigger than us.
Yeah, they're a lot bigger than us.
Yeah. Now, I saw in that video, obviously you don't seem to use a lot of the the bridles and the bits and whatever. I don't know all the terminology, so forgive me. But you mentioned earlier on the word choice, and now you're saying that you ask your horse to do things. I mean, like, that would be a foreign concept to most people. I mean, we kind of dominate our horses. They're animals of utility. We tell them what to do. We'll whip them. We'll pull the bit, whatever it might be. So it's interesting you're using that vocabulary. But that's what it is, right? It's actually a relationship that you build with the horse. And as it were, you win their trust, you're saying to me, and then you ask them to join you in whatever it is that you'd like to do, and they get to make that choice. What happens if what happens if a horse says no to you? What do you do?
So I guess the thing that if a horse says no, have they actually said no, or did they understand? Or did they not understand what I was asking? Because usually a horse won't say no if that's the best option for it. Does that make sense? Okay. Or if they really the best option for them. So usually if a horse says no, it can be a preconditioned response. They just say no to everything, or resist everything. And sometimes it can just be that they don't understand. They're not sure what you're asking of them, and so they do the opposite because that's their natural instinct. So, for instance, teaching a horse to lead, if I put pressure on the lead rope and halter, and they can feel that pressure on their head now, their natural instincts tell them, I'm trapped, get out of here. Right? So their natural thing to want to do is go the opposite way of the pressure and pull against it. And like you said before, they're way bigger than me. Like, there is no way that I could stop even a miniature horse running away if they really want to. And so the goal is to help them to understand that the pressure on their head is not going to trap them. It's going to go away if they come towards it. and it's going to be a better deal for them to be where I've asked them to be than where they are at the moment. And so there's this little kind of catchphrase or saying, I guess, that horses learn not from the pressure but from the release. So they learn where to be and how to respond when you actually take the pressure away, not because of the pressure on them.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I mean,
and
just
again,
incredible people parallels there as well,
yeah,
and gospel parallels there. That this idea of us, actually coming to a place, number one, where we actually trust the Lord, because
yeah,
we know He's got our best interests at heart, and
yeah,
His way is actually the better way. Therefore, we willingly go with it, but we can
that's
still
right.
say no if we want to.
Absolutely, that's exactly right. And it was really interesting. There is a lot of times where I'm training horses and it's not all rainbows and butterflies. It's not all easy. Sometimes it does take a little bit of grit and determination, and there are some physical challenges that we go through in that training process. But at the end of it, it's for me, it's being able to stay calm and keep the horse's best at heart. And that's a challenge, like I mentioned before, we're predators. And so when they start resisting and pulling against you and not wanting to do what you're asking them to, it's really easy to get frustrated and try and make them and go into that predatory behavior where, you do force or you want to force and you want to get frustrated with them. And that comes out in using the halter or a stick or whatever it is in ways that I wouldn't want it to be used on me. And so I guess the way that I train them is really like it's not always that picture of that video that you put up before. It takes, that's why I said
There are
before.
some behind the scenes.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are some challenges along the way until a horse actually understands, like, what does pressure mean and how do I respond to pressure? And is that pressure about me or is that not actually anything to do with me? Because there's times where, things feel like they're at the horse or about the horse and they're not. It's just me moving around them. And again, unhandled horses or young horses are really good demonstration of this, because they don't know that if I'm just walking from one side of them to the other, they don't have to jump out of the way. They don't have to run away. They don't have to move. It's neutral pressure, if that makes sense. And sometimes in a relationship with God, there is neutral pressure as well. Like, it feels like it might be about us, but actually it's got nothing to do with us. And we've just got to trust again that it's okay. Like, God's got this, and we don't need to jump out of His way, or maybe try and jump into His way to fix it for Him.
Yeah, I think that we're often getting in the way of, there's like that incredible story in the Bible where the Israelites come up against the Red Sea. There's a cliff on each side, the Egyptian army behind them. There is no way out. They're blocked by the sea. And I love what God says to Moses. He says, tell the people to just stand on the side and get out of the way so that I can do my thing. Because we're often, either resisting or, maybe even with best intentions, like trying to jump in there and God's like, well, actually I've got this, just step aside.
Yeah. And there's a funny little saying in horse training circles that hurry up and wait. Like, hurry up and do nothing. Just chill. You don't need to be jumping around anymore. It's over. Like, we're done. And we often as humans tend to want to fix stuff or do stuff or try and be the hero, and often we cause more difficulty for ourselves in doing that than if we just hurry up and wait.
Yeah, and we've spoken obviously about the parallel between traumatized or damaged traumatized horses, damaged traumatized children, techniques, relationship being at the key of that, etc. Have you had any experience with the way in which having people, adults, children, with difficulties or with challenges around horses, does that do anything for them? Is that
So you mean like kids or people who have had trauma in their life and that learning about connecting with horses, does that
Yeah,
help them?
yeah.
Yeah, so myself. Yep.
Okay, so you
So
personally experienced it, right? Okay.
personal experience, absolutely. But yeah, like there's so many stories. Like I don't even know which one to start with, but sometimes it's not anything, that someone would class necessarily as trauma or as a big deal, and yet for the person that's been their experience, they have um, they have struggled connecting with people or trusting people, and having an animal who doesn't care about all of the things that they might think about themselves. Like, that self-talk of like, I'm no good and I can't do this and everybody hates me and all those type of negative thoughts that people have. This horse doesn't come to the table with those in their mind. They can't think that. Horses do have emotions. They do have the ability to connect, but they don't have that conscious choice that we have. And so, yeah, the helping people to connect with horses on that really level playing field where there aren't any preconceived ideas of you don't wear the coolest clothes, or you come from this area of town, or this is what's happened to you in the past. They come to the table and go, dependent on what you put out is what I will give back. So if you want to connect with me and you're willing to go at my pace, then you only have to look at that picture or the video of Honor with Lockie versus the picture of me jumping her over something that's nearly 1.20 meters big. That's the same horse, and yet she is able to be the horse that that person needs in that moment. And it works for anybody, any trauma. you know it's pretty cool. They're pretty special animals, and people see it with dogs. People, that's a very
Yes.
common assistant animal, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, horses absolutely have that ability too.
That's incredible. So, any other sort of big learnings that you've picked up along the way, either about people, relationships, God, from your connection with the horses?
um there's a lot, and I actually hope my younger sister and I are at the moment working on some filming. She's pretty clever with the videoing and photos and stuff, and trying to put together some videos of concepts that I have learned, because I could talk for days about all the different concepts and how they relate to horses and people and God. But I guess the biggest thing for me is, if you don't have the trust and the respect in equal balance, then you really don't have a relationship, whether it be with a horse, with a human, or with God. Um, that trust and respect in an equal balance is really what any good relationship is based on. And if you have that, then no matter what the challenge is that's put in front of you, you can get through it. Whether it be a horse that's scared of something, but they trust you and they respect you enough to give it a try, or whether it be a human that you're connecting with and something's going wrong, you have a disagreement. If there's trust and respect, then you can talk through it, or actually go, we can agree to disagree, and that's okay too. um, which is probably the harder of the two than talking through it, to be fair.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
and then when it comes to God, it's that if we trust Him and respect Him, and go, actually, you have my best interest at heart, and I know that at a core level, then no matter what life presents, we can still stay connected with Him and not feel like the things that happen in our lives are a punishment, and not necessarily, this is, I always am a little bit amused when people blame God for things like somebody dying or natural disasters or whatever, because
Yep.
they blame him when things go wrong, but they never thank him when things go right. And that
Or it
balance
just
of
doesn't
trust,
exist at all
or he
until
just doesn't
something's gone
exist at all.
wrong, and then suddenly
That's
it's God, Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And so, having that concept of trust and respect, no matter whether it's good, bad, or otherwise, you can actually see God in the picture, and know that there there is always there's always a way to make that connection, and to have that same sort of relationship with him that we naturally seek, whether it be with people or with animals. And I guess that is the other thing. Horses are 100% herd animals. They want other horses around them. And if they don't have horses, then they're looking for something. So another animal, if there happens to be a human, they want connection. And that is actually one of the things that makes them quite easy to train. And I use easy in a very broad way because it's sometimes not easy. Um, but their desire to connect is really strong. It's innately in them. And I think, for everybody, every human on this planet, they have a piece of them
Yeah.
that wants to connect with people. And whether they realize it or not, they have a God-shaped hole in them that can only be filled with God.
Yeah.
And we're all looking for it, but we often try and shove other stuff in there. So
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think that's where a lot of our addictions and all sorts of broken behaviors come from, is because
yeah,
we're trying to fill that void, that
yeah,
sense we have when the lights are off, and all the amusements and whatever's gone away, and sort of confronted with yourself or whatever
yeah,
else, and suddenly it's like, there's got to be something more, and there is something more. But until we're willing to go, okay, Lord, um, if you're the creator, I've been designed for you. Until
yeah.
then, we'll be substituting with all sorts of other things that only entrap and enslave.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because, Pat and I have talked about this often, is that people often see coming to God that you need to be at rock bottom, because otherwise you don't see your need for him. But, you know, with the horses I train and with the people that I've worked with, I don't tend to have people in that sphere of their life. Most people that I work with, they have nice families and they have good homes and they have jobs, and life is pretty okay, and yet that hole is still there. And there are horses that I get sent who are challenging, or they've had a life, and they're with a new person, and there's just something not quite happening. And it's not because they're a bad horse, it's just there is some connection not making sense to them. And so, yeah, I guess the parallel is helping the horse make sense of the pressure and make sense of the fact that actually life is okay, but there is that connection missing, and that is connect with the person, and you'll actually have a much more pleasant experience and enjoyable life. And it's the same for us with God. You don't have to hit rock bottom to see your need of him.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So do you have to work with the horses, with the horse owner as well as the horse? I mean, it sounds like if it's a relationship dynamic, that you'd need both parties to come to the table.
Yes. So, for the most part, people who send their horses to me, they already want what I have to offer, if that makes sense. Like they want to connect with their horse, and that's their goal. I have
Right.
had some clients that they've just been told to send their horse to me because I did a good job with someone
You'll
else's
fix it.
horse. But yeah, I'll fix it for them. But they're not really willing to make the changes to actually carry on with what I've done with the horse. And there's actually one instance that pops to my mind as I say that. I started a horse for She was probably, middle-aged sort of lady, had a lot of life experience, had horses all of her life, and she knew what to do with horses. She didn't need to be taught. And when she sent her horse to me, she wasn't really willing to hear me out on how I train and what I do and what my expectations of her at the end would be. So when I have a horse come, they always are here for a certain amount of time, to be started anyway. So they're here for a certain amount of time, and I always try and do at least one handover lesson so that the horse gets to know their new person, or their new old person, because they're usually going back to someone that they've been with before. But that person now knows the new way of being around this horse and how to connect with them and what brings out the best in the horse. And this lady was not having a bar of it. She didn't want that handover lesson, whether, like, she just wasn't interested. And it wasn't probably even 3 months later that I heard from somebody else that she'd been bucked off the horse, and as she got bucked off, it kicked her, and and then she sold the horse. And I was quite bothered by that at the time, because I went, if only she'd had that handover lesson, and if only when things did start to go wrong, she'd made contact with me, I'd be more than happy to help her through at no extra charge. Because my goal is that the horse and the rider can work together and connect and carry on. And starting this horse, he never showed any of that behavior. He never even thought about bucking or kicking or anything like that. And so for me, I was so upset, what happened that he felt that he needed to do that. I actually only just last year found out where that horse got sold to, and the lady who bought him, she's actually started having lessons with me and been able to fill in some blanks of who he is and what he was like previous to this experience, and the relationship that they have is just so cool, and it makes me so happy that somebody bought him and loves him and is willing to now kind of build that relationship with him. And but if you're unwilling to learn, then unfortunately you're going to end up
Hey, I was thinking to myself, that sounds like another great object lesson there. I mean, if we're not going to listen to the Creator and the way He's designed us, life is going to buck us off and give us a good kick, isn't it?
Yeah, that's
if we just want to do it our way, just go out there and ride life like we want to do it. We're probably going to find ourselves on the receiving end of something not so pleasant.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's that story in the Bible, the parable that Jesus told of the two sons, and the one said, I want my inheritance, and went off and did his own thing. But the point of that story is actually that God wanted him to come back, and when he came back, he was willing to do everything for him. There was no questions asked, no where have you been, why did you go, you silly person. And I guess that's how I felt about this. I wouldn't have judged her for the things that went wrong, but more go, can we find a way forward? Can we reconnect? Can we help this horse to understand? Can we help you to find that connection? And that's what God wants for every single one of us. And that's why that parable is in the Bible, because he goes, actually, every single one of you have taken your inheritance and left, but I'm willing to take you back.
Yeah, love it. Now we're running out of time fast here, Tori.
I did tell you I could talk for days.
You've sent me a few great quotes that are really, really fantastic. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what they mean to you? And I'll put them on the screen as you talk about them.
Yeah, cool.
So here's the first one you sent me.
So
God is love, is written upon every opening bud, upon every spire of springing grass. The lovely birds making their air vocal with their happy songs. The delicately tinted flowers in their perfection perfuming the air. The lofty trees of the forest with their rich foliage of living green. All testify to the tender fatherly care of our God and to his desire to make his children happy. Wow, what a statement.
Yeah, it's a pretty it's a bold statement when you think about a lot. Most is probably a generalization, but a lot of people don't see God that way. You know, the first opening words is God is love. And so many of us don't see God that way because of our experiences in life. And I guess, you know, for me with the horses, so many of the horses don't come to me seeing humans as good and trustworthy. And so everything everything that I do with them is really trying to help them to be pointed in that direction, that actually it's about trust, it's about connection, it's about, you know, God is love. I care about you. And I can't help but look around our world and see little God fingerprints everywhere. And I guess the horses is a big place for me because that's what I do day in and day out. So yeah.
Yeah, and another one here from Christ's Object Lessons, fantastic book. If our viewers are looking for a good read, track this one down. Just one sentence here: by beholding the matchless love of Christ, the selfish heart will be melted and subdued.
So, you know, so often with the horses that are sent to me, or even my own horses, it's really easy for them to rely on their horse instincts, which tell them don't connect, don't be friends with this human, they are no good. And it's only when you can actually prove to them through the way that I work with them that they actually start to see that that's not correct. Their picture of who I was is inaccurate. And I think it's the same with God. It's not actually until you start to pause and look at him and see how is he actually interacting with me, not how do I think he's interacting with me, but how is he actually, that you see who he really is.
Yeah, which is kind of like this next statement: nature and revelation alike testify of God's love. Our Father in heaven is the source of life, of wisdom, of joy. Look at the wonderful and beautiful things of nature. Think of their marvelous adaptation to the needs and happiness not only of man, but of all living creatures. The sunshine, the rain that gladden and refresh the earth, the hills and seas and plains, all speak to us of the Creator's love. It is God who supplies the daily needs of all his creatures.
I don't think that one needs explaining.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Any last thoughts as we wrap it up, Tori?
No, nothing. Nothing in particular comes to mind.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess like you asked earlier, sort of what got me into it, and I guess although I was brought up in a Christian home in my early years, there was a chunk of my life that you know, I was in a normal normal family, do you know what I mean, outside of a Christian home. And so for me, having experienced both versions of life, and then at 14 choosing to go, actually I want to reconnect with God, and I didn't really know what that meant. You know, at 14 it was based on my child version of who God is and what
Sure.
you know, what I'd been taught by my parents. And so the journey with my horses has really helped me to have that personal kind of walk with God. And I love that God has actually used something that makes sense to me. Like he hasn't kind of spoken in a way that has been confusing or or that I didn't already enjoy. And I guess that question that was raised with my parents of how does this horse crazy girl, how does she connect with God, how does it look, when you think about our mission as Christians is to share the gospel. And my journey with horses and my walk with Christ has really been, they go hand in hand for me. And I guess hopefully people who are watching will maybe make some connections in their own life to the relationships that they have and how they function, and maybe why they don't function as well as they should, and hopefully know how to change that, I guess.
Yeah, love it. Tori, thank you so much for joining us tonight, for sharing your wisdom, for putting yourself out there. You can find Tori, just look up on Google, I suppose, Tori Lee Equestrian. You also have a YouTube channel, and I'm thinking of your sister Hope and you doing some video together. I imagine that's where you're going to be posting it when it's done.
Yeah, so we are hoping, like, it will definitely go on my YouTube channel, but we're also hoping to be able to put it onto the Hope channel, which is the Christian TV channel, and also First Light. So
absolutely.
That's what we're hoping for. But
Brilliant.
if love fails, it definitely will be on YouTube and Facebook.
Yeah, definitely. So thank you for joining us tonight. Just absolutely love what you've shared. Thank you for the videos and the photos and the conversation. And may God richly bless you. You are a unique and a special lady, and you've got a great ministry going and a good business. And just wish you all of God's richest blessings as you continue with that.
Thank you.
Well, I hope that you have been blessed this evening again with another great conversation. I hope that you've learned some things, and that you're going to be able to apply something in some kind of relationship that needs it most. And I love Tori's heart for the Lord. I love her heart for the creatures that God has made and for people as well, and bringing all of those things together in her experience and in her ministry. So be sure to look her up, to find her online. And if you do happen to have a horse that needs some training and you're willing to be a part of that relationship growing journey, look her up, Tori Lee Equestrian. And she is the right person for that job. So this evening, thank you for tuning in. I want to invite you to tune in at 5 p.m. tomorrow. And tomorrow we're going to be talking to another good friend of mine, and we're going to be talking about his ministry in the area of taking care of our elderly. So he is part of he's actually the leader of a rest home organization in Auckland called Bethesda, and we're going to have him online tomorrow, Hartley, and Hartley's going to share with us some of the incredible things that happen there, what they're all about. And so I invite you to tune in tomorrow again at 5 p.m. In the meantime, don't forget to like, to share, to subscribe, and we'll see you again tomorrow night. Until then, God bless.